Hello, everyone. This is a presentation of the article, Interdisciplinary Literacy Through Social Media in the Mathematics Classroom, an Action Study by Gail Casey. A little bit about the author. On this page are her credentials to date. When she wrote this article, she was enrolled at Deakin University and has since then received her PhD. Her focus was on social and participatory media in educational environments as outlined on the slide. She describes herself in the article as a high school mathematics and information technology teacher. Her focus was on global classroom projects that help students not only practice the specific language of the curriculum, but also expose them to opinions that other people might have on the topics that they're learning. So why did I choose this article? First off, our district just passed a bond project which promised to go one-to-one. I would really like to introduce myself to some different ways to incorporate technology so that I can make good use of this district's promise. And I was just really curious to see how something as accessible as social media could be used to benefit my classroom. For Casey, her school adopted a literacy policy, and all of the teachers were expected to follow the good literacy practices within their curricula. And this project or incorporating social media was her response to that expectation. She makes an argument that there's a growing disconnection with today's tools or what teachers are using in today's classroom and what students are using in society. And another reason why she chose this was that she thought it would give her students the opportunity to learn from one another. And then they would build knowledge, they would build from the knowledge of their peers and maybe even touch on what they've learned across the different curriculum. So what is this article about? Mainly, actually, this quote was from the conclusion part, but I really thought it was a good question on what she was discovering herself. But a little description about what the article is about. It addresses how integrating social media into a face-to-face mathematics classroom can help strengthen the interdisciplinary literacy. And throughout the whole entire article, she was kind of touching on ways and answers to this question. So here's a little bit about the study itself. One thing that I was a little bit bummed about is that it was a qualitative study rather than quantitative, so there wasn't a lot of data to show whether or not the study was improving classroom engagement and classroom, overall understanding of the topics. But anyway, the study, it focuses on her integration of the website ning.com, that's Ning.com, and that website provides access to blogs, groups, and forums where students can read, they can write, they can create, and publish different content. All of the members of the classroom Ning can then comment on each other's and then just discuss what they've learned and found, kind of like the blog that we're using in our classroom right now. So then a little bit of difference between what we have and what they have is that all the members of Ning, they have their own homepage, kind of like your own profile page in Facebook or whatnot. And that's how Gail Casey was able to access or find all of the different content that each individual posted themselves. So a little bit about what she does. She sets up one Ning site for all of her classes to use. So even though she teaches 5 different courses, they all use one Ning site for each semester. And what she does, or the purpose of that, is that she hopes that it creates a shared learning space that crosses all the different classes that she teaches. Therefore, a student who may have taken, during the study, she taught 2 year 8 math classes and 2 year 7 integrated technology classes, as well as 1 8-10 programming class at this time, or while I read it, it didn't really clarify what mathematics that would relate to in our studies. So I wasn't quite sure if this was an algebra content. It sounds like most of the stuff that she touched on dealt with technology classes in general, which maybe kind of also leans itself to using social media in the class. The forum acted as a place for students to post and react to each other's discussions, as I talked about before. And it's also a place for students to discuss projects. They could break out into small groups and actually form small groups within their Ning stratosphere. And then what the part that I liked the best about is that they could also take topics that they've learned about in class and then share links and discuss things further and comment on those. All of the data, so how they did the study is that they took all of the data, and really the data that they had was from screenshots of students reacting to each other and having the classroom discussion on the interface. And what they did with these discussions is that they categorized them into different types of content, activities, interactions, and assessments. They were also coded as teacher-student and learning into teacher-student learning themes. And what was explained to me is that most of the data fell into multiple categories. The hope of this data, or the hope of this study, was to show that students were really developing from each other, learning from each other, engaging with the material, a little bit more so than just the standard classroom setting, which most teachers use now. So that brings me on to the purpose of the study itself. Like I said a minute ago, student engagement was a big focus. They wanted to see, or really prove, that adolescents read texts that are embedded in social networks. This is what they're used to doing. This is what a part of their life. They're oversharing. They're connected constantly to what each other is doing at a certain time and taking pictures of it and sharing that across the internet. And what the purpose of this, or what the idea of this, is that if they have such a habit of using social media already, how can we incorporate education into that so that they can become better internet users and better at representing themselves on the internet, as well as learn deeper, more about the curriculum that they're learning in class. What they found is that it gave the students a lot of ownership of their education, and therefore, since they really owned what they were posting, or owned what they found, they really were a lot more excited to share that with their peers and learn about what their peers were finding. So I think that really kind of shows the heightened student engagement in the content. Another focus was student literacy. Students, they were able to practice engaging with the mathematics, especially talking about it. One thing that I find difficult to teach students is how to speak in mathematics, or in mathematics terms. I really can see that the difference between my students who are good at math and the students who can really internalize it and teach it to other people. And what this blog did, or what the purpose of this blog was, is to give all students on different levels the ability to write about math. And I think that's a really good thing. Let's see. So that kind of talks about cross-curricular, because they are, they're using a different way of showing their learning in mathematics. One thing that I didn't really agree with necessarily is that she didn't take off she let them use text language, which means that they could use the letter U for you, or hashtag go school, or whatever. But she didn't take off for that, which it does allow for, I guess, what I would consider a more relaxed community, where students are able to share a little bit more, or feel a little bit more comfortable sharing their discoveries. But at the same time, I guess my argument, which I will get to later, but if their focus was really on school literacy, and good literacy practices. I don't quite know if I agree that that was achieving that goal. Moving on. One thing that I did agree with, though, is that it really helps students access education outside of school. You know, this Ning.com, this website, is constantly available and it's constantly being updated. Its community members are constantly sharing and talking and discussing, or at least that's what the point of it is. So it's really changing and growing with the students as they learn, and that you can hop in and hop out and learn a little bit here and there. Again, I think is a lot like our blog through this class, where we can post on and comment on the different things that we find interesting. What was good is these things that the students are posting is that it really challenges them to find ways that what they're learning is connected to the real world. So how can they take what they're learning in class and connect it to different things in the media, in the news, etc. And then after this community is set up, the students can start teaching and learning from each other, which really shifts the focus away from the teacher as the end source to all knowledge. And it puts it right back on the students. So the good things, which are really outlined in the slide before with the student engagement, etc., was that are just kind of bulleted right here. A couple things that I wanted to share is that she shares some stories about some lower achieving students who really asked to spend some extra time, working on a post or rewording some stuff with her, because they were proud about, or they wanted to be proud about what they posted, and I guess posting what they found on the internet added a little bit more seriousness than just saying it aloud in class. So that was encouraging for me to read. Another story that she said was good for her to watch is that students would get on and almost use it like a Yelp review. They would go on and say, hey, I found this website. I do or don't like it because of this, this, and this. And that starts building a community of trust where students can really rely on each other to help improve their own education. So the things that I was a little bummed about, again, the qualitative versus quantitative, I really would have liked to see some data, some numbers that showed that incorporating social media was actually benefiting the classroom and the students. The teacher admitted, so the author admitted that it was time consuming. Oftentimes in the article, she mentioned developing her own activities and coming up with discussion groups and stuff like that. And there was no real explanation about how she went about doing that. And I do think that it would be a big undertaking to do alone, which made me wonder if they had some sort of community of teachers that worked on it together. She admitted that it does require a solid understanding of social media and how that works. And I would have never even known about Ning.com had I not read this article. So doing the research and finding out what social media site works best for you. Another thing is that with that text talk that she mentioned before, she did say that it adjusted the classroom norms and almost made it a little bit more relaxed, which, depending on the teacher, that can be a good or bad thing. And she did say that was something that she had to get used to. I think it would be kind of tough to differentiate when is text talk good and what does our discourse look like online versus in class. All right, so my closing comments, and here are some more questions that I had. How did she do the teams? What if a student didn't have access to the internet? What if they didn't want to be involved for privacy reasons? And then just the planning logistics are things that I was kind of questioning as I was going through. But I am running out of time, so that is my presentation over my individual article. I really encourage you to pick it up and read it for yourselves because it does list a lot of good websites that you can use in your own classroom. Thank you.